Simple Cyber Defense Security Updates for July 21st, 2021.
Welcome back to the Simple Cyber Defense podcast. This week we have some very interesting and important topics. We're going to be talking about the never-ending print nightmare that is going on and how to mitigate that. And we're also going to be talking about how your Google Assistant is spying on you. So, my name is Carl. I'm joined with...
Hi, this is Ahmad.
And we're going to get right into it right now. So, many news outlets have gone over the multiple print nightmare scenarios where Microsoft is basically sounding the alarm, saying that the hackers could easily get into your system through your printers. And basically the issue happened a couple months back when some researchers discovered this vulnerability and sent it to Microsoft responsibly, and Microsoft looked at it and issued a patch. However, the patch didn't fully fix the issue, and the issue was there was two vulnerabilities happening with the print spoolers. Now, the print spooler is the piece of software that is responsible for all the printing that happens on your computer, whether it's locally or through the network. And what the attackers were able to do was they were able to use the vulnerability in the print spooler to give them advanced privileges that will allow them to do basically anything they wanted on your computer without even your knowledge or even your input. And once they had that, they were able to send out fake print drivers to your computer, which would then reach out to the internet and download malware. And since they had the elevated privileges, the computer would just say, okay, this is exactly what the user wanted, so we're just going to install it, and there's not going to be any question about it. And this was very dangerous. So the researcher gave this information to Microsoft, and Microsoft made the mistake to only patch one part of the issue, which was the elevated privileges issue, but the other part was still in there. And then another research team saw that the patch was out, and they were saying, oh, okay, so it's safe to send out this proof of concept that will, show how it could have been done, but it was mitigated. Well, unfortunately, the patch didn't work. So once the researchers published their findings, it was basically giving a blueprint to the hackers of how to exploit this, and they took advantage of it right away. So now we come into this week's, where Microsoft is telling people to disable the spooler in order to stop these attacks from happening. Well, unfortunately, if you disable your spooler, you won't be able to print anything on your computer. So that's fine if you don't have any printers, but if you do have a printer, you'd have to turn it on and off every time you want to print, which could be kind of a hassle for some people, because not only do you have to remember how to turn it off and how to turn it back on, but you have to do it every single time you want to print. So there is another workaround to this. You could go through the group policy and disable what is known as allow print spooler to accept client connections. What this basically does mean that it will allow you to print locally, but it will not allow anything to be printed over a network. So since most home users don't have a network for printing, this is a really good option for them. And I really recommend everyone to do this right now. Either if you don't have any printers on there, just disable the spooler altogether, or if you do have a printer and since home users don't really print over the network, I recommend going through disabling the remote clients. Now, to do the disabling of the spooler locally, what you'll do is you'll press the Windows key and R to invoke a run dialog. When the run dialog opens up, you'll type in services.msc, hit enter to open up the services. In the service window, you'll scroll and locate the print spooler services. You'll double click on that entry, open up its properties window. In there, you'll move to the General tab and move to the second section titled Services Status Selection. You'll click the Start button to enable it, or to disable it, you hit the Stop. And this will take care of the ability to remotely install drivers, because the spooler won't run, and so it won't accept any new drivers. So the hacker won't be able to send in the drivers to install the malware. Now, if you want to configure and block the remote networking printing, what you're going to do is you're going to go to your search bar and type in for group policies, and then you're going to go to computer configurations / administrative templates, and then you're going to find something that says allow printer spooler to accept client connections, and then you're going to right click that, and then you're going to put in a block so that it will not allow remote printing at all. Now, after you do all this, you have to restart the spooler, which would allow the settings to take effect. Now, you go in through the same way as disabling the spooler, but instead of disabling it, you're just going to stop it and start it. An easier way is just to reboot your PC, and then everything will take effect from there. Now, the reason why the attack is able to happen in the first place, and this is not affecting other drivers, is because Microsoft in the past has made the decision to force every single driver that is to be installed on the computer to be digitally signed by the manufacturer. So if it doesn't have a valid signature, it won't be installed. But for whatever reason, they decided that printers do not need to follow this method. So since they are not digitally signed, anyone could create a print driver and install it. And since they have the elevated privileges, they basically have the entire entire control over your computer. And any questions that you have on one?
So now, not everybody understands what a digital signature of a file is. Can you want to elaborate on that a little bit?
So basically, a digital signature is it's kind of like a physical signature, except it's not able to be forged because there's what's known as a private key and a public key. Now, the private key is like a super secret, kind of like a password that no one will know, and it's kept privately hidden away from everyone's eyesight. And then the public key is what's given out to everyone to show proof that, okay, this signature that I've given you is actually my signature, not someone else's signature.
So the way I kind of, to bring it closer to it, is the way I imagine a private and a public key. It's actually not two keys; it's a lock and key. So they kind of fit in with one another. So to bring it closer to our perception here, And when they fit together, then we know, okay, this guy fits with this guy. Then I can communicate with this file, or I can do whatever I want with this file.
Yeah.
Yeah, trust it. Yeah.
So it's like a trust. Everything's more like a trust, because with cryptography, the concept is don't trust anyone, and you have to keep your secret secret, and this public and private thing is a way to get that trust together. So you have like the interlocking key saying, okay, this is the person because only that person has this part, and only this person has this part, and when they come together, boom,
Yep.
it locks in, and we can trust.
Right.
Yep.
Now, we know that Microsoft didn't require digital signature for those drivers because this issue is going on now. But how do you know there aren't other drivers that don't require digital signatures that could cause the same thing? You know,
It's because doing some research through here that I'm going to provide links in the description for you to go further into this, but so every time you install a driver, a lot of times you'll have this little pop-up window that'll show up, and then it'll say the name of the company that is trying to install the driver. That's basically the name of the digital signature that's on there. A lot of times when you install print drivers, you don't get this little pop-up window that pops up and say, okay, are you sure you want to install this, yes or no? That indicates that there is no digital signature involved in it.
okay.
So if it could just install itself without administrative rights, which a lot of print drivers can do, that shows you that there's no digital signature involved because there's nothing to check against. But every other driver, you always have that little pop-up that says, hey, this is the company that's trying to install something. Do you want to allow it, yes or no? There's the part that's the digital signature involved in that. Once you hit yes, give it the admin rights, and then you run through the installation of the driver. And plus, there is a way to check is if you go to the device manager, you can actually see this digital signature that is involved in that driver.
Right.
I'm going to create a blog post on simplecyberdefense.com that goes over how to disable the spoolers, how to disable the remote thing, and how to check to see drivers or non-drivers on there. So it gives you a little bit more explanation so you can see what's going on with pictures, and so that it'll be a little bit more easier to understand than trying to listen through a podcast or watching audio on YouTube or something like that.
Right. All right, perfect.
Right. I guess we'll move on to the Google Assistant.
All right, so Google was, there's an article from Android Authority where they had contacted Google and to get clarification on the Google Assistant and how it could be listening to us without it being summoned. Now we know that we have our Google Assistant on our phones, and if you have a Google speaker at home or any other Google devices that you may be using, those devices are generally on standby, and then it saved your voice signature, and that's how you're able to activate your assistant. So by saying, "Hey Google," you can activate it. Now it was discovered that Google secretly records some of your conversation even without you saying the activation word, "Hey Google," or "Okay Google," or whatever. And this was brought up to Google, and Google kind of waited a while to respond until eventually on July, they admitted that the Google Assistant records the user's audio even when it is not triggered by the hot. It's called a hot word. And if for us to when we do some research on that, uh, you know, Google said they gave us a link to check out the safety center and to see it, to understand. Okay, this is what happens when you talk to your Google Assistant. Well, some of the explanation that Google gave was, okay, sometimes your phone thinks you're saying "Hey Google," and it doesn't. So this would be one of those times that it may be recording some of the conversations that it may not be authorized to record. At other times, they're saying Google listens so that it improves the speech recognition of the device and of user's voice and user's commands. Also, what they're saying is that some of the Google employees listen to small few-second snippets of these conversations, of this audio, um, when conversation is detected. So now we have three issues. We have unauthorized recording of data, of my personal data, personal identifying information. I have the second issue is I don't know where that information is being stored, or whether it's being stored securely or not. The third thing is there's an actual live person somewhere in the world that is listening to the conversations, to some of the conversations that I'm having with my device. So it's a big privacy issue. Um, and Google calls this standby mode. And what's this do? And they're saying in standby mode, the device will process short snippets of the audio a few seconds. Now, if I say, "Hey Google, do this for me," it's going to take less than a few seconds. So if Google is trying to downplay this issue, saying, "Hey, we only listen for a few seconds on standby mode," which this is, to me, this is not acceptable. Now, also, they're saying that what Google Assistant does is that when it detects the hot word, is it will record a few seconds before you saying that hot word. Well, kind of like when you take a picture with this live photos, and you take a picture, and a few seconds before it had taken a short video. Well, I didn't authorize you to do that. I activated you when I said the hot word. Now, really, there is no work around this at the time. We really have to take Google's word for it, and trust that they're ethically using that information, and they're securely protecting it as a large corporation. But at the same time, if you've read Edward Snowden's book, Permanent Record, we know that everything we do, everything we say, there is a record of it somewhere. Otherwise, we wouldn't have zettabytes of data being stored, in by large corporations all over the country, all over the world, in different data centers. Uh, so the way I do this on my phone is, honestly, I do not have Google Assistant activated. Some people may think, "Oh, this is backwards thinking." You're not in this industry, especially somebody like me in the industry, need to keep up with the trends. Well, that is fine and dandy. I need to understand how it works. But then when I see that it's jeopardizing my privacy, then I need to take steps to mitigate that risk. Carl, what do you think is the best way to mitigate this?
Well, like I said, I like if you have an iPhone, you're a little bit safer from the Google, but you still have the issue with Siri. And I would even go into further, if you have an Android phone, it's the Google Assistant is baked into it, so it's a little harder to disable, but you can go into the setting or into the permissions for that particular app and just deny it the microphone.
Right.
And there's also some other apps out there that you can go through and find to disable microphones when you're not using them in the background and stuff like that. There are like many dedicated websites and Reddit communities out there dedicated to the privacy sector out here.
Right.
And it's a big issue because, like, not only is Google doing this, but Amazon's doing it with their Echoes, and Apple's doing it with their Siri. They're always listening for that trigger word, because it's kind of weird how, if you think about it, how does my phone know that I'm saying the trigger word unless it's always listening to me?
Right.
And you can even go into your Google activities and see all of the times that you used or where Google thought you used the trigger word. And you can listen to exactly what they've recorded. And I've done this, and I've heard conversations that I had with coworkers where I didn't even say anything remotely close to the trigger word, but yet it recorded 30 seconds of our conversation.
Wow. 30 seconds.
30 seconds of our conversation. And
that's what Google refers to as few seconds.
Yeah, and imagine if you were talking about sensitive content during that. It's out in the public now. Because who knows, like you said, who knows how they're protecting it? Because Google isn't being forthcoming of it. At first, like you said, it's first when they brought this issue up, they kind of just shrugged it off, like, it's no big deal. And then now they're going, okay, since more people are making a big deal out of this, I guess we're going to talk about it a little bit more. So, if you really, really want to be protected against this, what I would do, which probably would be going on to more the extreme version, is either get a phone, because now they're coming up with phones that are Linux based, that don't have any Google or Apple stuff on it, and they're trying to make it a lot more user friendly. But I would lean towards getting one of those phones instead of a Google or an Apple phone. And
who makes one manufacturer, like Huawei and Xiaomi and all these guys?
What they do is they take Samsung phones and basically strip away all the Google stuff out of it and put in a Linux machine. So they basically flash the entire memory out of it. So they're anything Google, anything on that phone is completely wiped off and destroyed. And they then install their Linux operating system on there. Now the downside of that, you don't have the Google apps that you're used to or the Apple apps that you're used to. You have to basically start from scratch. But at the same time, it's how important is your privacy? Like, do you want to be listened constantly, or do you actually want to take control of your privacy a little bit? So that's kind of like a trade-off when you use these technologies. Is are you okay with Google knowing a little bit more information about you, or do you want to keep that information private? So it's kind of like the trade-off. Like, you get free stuff, or where you have to pay mostly through your data, or you take away your data, but you have to pay through it by using other alternative technologies to do what you need to do. So that's kind of trade-off you need to think about.
An interesting podcast I just listened to last week. It's called The Eighth Layer. Yeah. Have you heard of it? Okay.
Heard of it.
And the last, if you haven't listened to it, do yourself a favor and listen to it.
Yeah, it's the CyberWire's Eighth Layer.
Not CyberWire. Yeah. Yep. And the last episode they did last week or the week before, and it was it's really eye-opening. It was about to defeat as people, as human beings, we fall victim to deception. And that's how social engineers come in, and they're able to find out more information. If they have one piece of information, they use human nature to their advantage. They're not trying to trick us. They're just using human nature to get more information to achieve their goal. And the end of the episode was something that was really mind-boggling, which is, why do we put our real information online? You could be a totally different person, totally different name, phone number, email address, anything, even when to the point where your security questions.
Yeah.
You give them, you give fake information, so that all the information about you on the web is the information that you choose to be out there, which is totally, you're using deception in your, exactly. And it's as simple as it is. It was really eye opening.
Yeah.
If I because who needs to know my real name? My employer, and even my family doesn't need to know, but they already do. Your employer and your friends, anybody online, even on LinkedIn. Like, I thought about this as a cyber professional. Why is it my information all on LinkedIn and anybody can access that? I can put a fake name on there, and then when an employer reaches out, fake everything, right? The employer reaches out. All right, now we're doing the paperwork. You're going to pay me. All right, here's my real information, my social security number, and all that. I think that would be a smart thing to do. So why don't we do the same thing now, as having a digital persona and teaching your Google Assistant that digital persona of who you are on the web? That's a nice shield, puts it right in front of who you are, and nobody knows who you are. Nobody can attack you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's a little bit of food for thought.
Yeah, and that's another question that a lot of these privacy groups online through Reddit or the Privacy Tools IO or PrivacyTools.io basically talk about the same things about why are we giving away this information. Like, yes, we are getting free stuff, but we're not really required to give them real information.
Yes.
Or even, like, I even just recently created a blog post on SimperCyberdefense.com where I go over ways to create email aliases so that you don't give Facebook your real email address, you give them one of your aliases. Same thing with the bank accounts and the streaming services. You don't give them your real email address, you give them something else that you created so that they don't know your real email address. Because again, it could be easier to link yourself into if you get just enough information together and then say, okay, this person's email address is this, he lives here, on Facebook he posted about these couple of things, and then they just make a little profile, and then these hackers will just say, okay, this is who I have to pretend to be to trick him to do this, and then bada bing, bada boom, they take over your account and wipe your bank account or do whatever they want. And then you just sit there like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
It's because you just manipulate it little by little.
Yeah. And that's done, if I don't know if you're aware of this tool, but there's a tool called Multigo. Have you heard of it?
I've heard of it, yep.
And all I need to do is I can put in there just one thing about you, two things, three, however many things I have, like name and phone number, photo and address, email address and Facebook ID or whatever. And then what Multigo will do is it'll create a web crawler, and it'll go out on the web and find things that are similar, and connect it into a web, and I'll have within a day or two, depending on how much information are out there on the web about you and how much crawling it needs to do, I can have everything about you, even things that you don't know are out on the web. So that's very important. The digital age that we're living in, I honestly think that digital alias thing is an awesome idea.
Yeah. So that way you can, like, again, put a little layer of buffer between you and the web. Like you said, you don't need to give out your information, especially the security information, the security questions.
Right.
It's like if you put in, like, say, what's your mother's maiden name, or what street you grew up on, and then you go to these Facebook accounts, and then you see these people post around saying, oh, your rapper name is the first thing that you did plus the street you grew up on, and then all of a sudden it's like, wait a minute, a little bit here, a little bit there, then all of a sudden I have all your security questions, and I can just go to reset your password, and I'm in your account.
Yep. Don't forget to share it with your friends so they can do the same thing.
Share it with your friends, because the more information they need, the better. So they don't want just your account, they want everyone's account.
Yeah. Cool.
Yep.
Well, I think that should do it. Unless you have anything else, any other comments
No,
you
I
can
think
say.
that'll do it. So this will end this episode, and hopefully you'll look out for the next episode, and we'll see you in the next one.
Yep.
If you like what was in this episode, please consider liking, subscribing, and sharing with others. For more information, to suggest a topic, or to donate, head over to simplecyberdefense.com.